82.9 million Nigerians live below poverty level. That is according to the National Bureau of Statistics. That's the government body in charge of statistics in Nigeria. Now, this is mind-blowing. And honestly, I still think this is very conservative, that it's not even large enough. It's not representative enough as much as possible, because later on in the article, according to Nigerian Tribune, later on in the article, they made it very clear that the National Bureaus of Statistics didn't even poll Borno State because of insecurities and all of that, which means so much of the data is actually missing. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. And of course, I'm going to be explaining in this video why it is very difficult for you to lock down Nigeria. The reason why the government cannot, in their good conscience, lock down the country for an extended period of time like other countries can do it. That's the reason. For those people who are not in support of easing the lockdown, that is one of the reasons why the government is having to lift it up. So now, before we continue, make sure you subscribe to the channel, make sure you like the video. It's really going to help the channel to grow. And let's begin. Now, we have, according to the article, 137,430 is the poverty line. That's when it comes to income per year. So that's the amount like you're supposed to make for you to be like at the poverty line. And to me, this is completely arbitrary. To me, it's completely arbitrary. It's just like somebody just chose it up. And why should it be 137,430 naira? It seems very, very wonky and very awkward. Because that means that you are talking about 11,452 naira per month. Who can really live in this economy upon 11,452 naira per month? And I understand that it's actually proving the point, because they say that it's the poverty line. That is, people below that, that's the poverty line. But I'm still thinking that, are you really saying that people living with 15,000 naira per month, they are not supposed to be classified as poverty line? Because I'm just trying to look at it, because it depends on the sort of benchmark that the government is looking at. That is what is really going to determine the number of people you are going to classify as being under the poverty line. Because this number, 82.9 million, is very, very conservative. I don't think it's very accurate. So many more people in Nigeria are finding it hard to be able to live adequately in the country. So that's just the fault of the government, or at least the benchmark they're using to measure it. Because, for example, now look at the United States. In the United States, the poverty line is $40,000 per year. $40,000 per year means about 15 to 18 million naira per year. Just think about that. I understand that the standard of living there and the quality of life there is completely different from here, but that's just the standard. You would be a millionaire if you were living in Nigeria with that sort of income. So that's just it. So I believe this thing is very dubious. This sort of number we're using is very dubious, but that's just aside. Other than that, to still have 82 million people, 82 to 83 million people in Nigeria who cannot even boast of 11,000 naira per month. It's very, very, very dangerous. It's very, very serious. It means there is a big, like a very, very big base of people that are completely discontented with the situation of the country in this country. It's one of the reasons why the government cannot lock the nation down, because if they do that, you are just calling for what? You are calling for a social uprising. You are calling for a popular uprising. People are going to revolt. That's the problem. Because if they can't even hit, this situation is when they can even go outside and fend for themselves. You still have 82.9 million Nigerians who can't live effectively. How much more when you lock them down? And those people, of course, are going to be in the class of people who need to go outside and sell things, who need to go outside and, hustle, as we will call it, every single day for them to be able to eat that day's bread. That's the situation. So if that's the case, how are you going to be able to lock these people down and they will not resort into crime? This is not sort of hitting them. I'm not trying to insult those people, because they're human beings too. But the fact is, when you are desperate, when you are hungry and you're very desperate, people do things they would never imagine they would ever do in their lives. That's just the situation. That's what we call it, crimes of desperation. People do that. Again, I mentioned it. Imagine that you are in a particular area that has been locked down, and then there are stores around, there are shops around with food in them, there are shops around with provisions in them, and then the only reason why you can't get them, let's even say you have cash on you, but the only reason why you can't get them is because those places are locked, and those people selling things, they are not allowed to go to business, they're not allowed to practice their business, they're not allowed to come to work. It's going to get to a particular stage where you just have to go there and loot the place overnight. That's the situation. That is what is going to happen. So it's like calling for crime, and we have a huge base of people who are going to fall directly into that demographic. That's the situation going on. So, and again, there's actually one of the states, according to the report, that has a very serious case of this poverty. That's, and again, we are talking about 11,000 naira per month. So, and that is Sokoto State. About 87.7% of people in Sokoto State, like, it's a whooping number. I just don't understand how it's going to be that way. Like, it's massive. It is scary. 87.7 people in Sokoto State can't even boast of 11,000 naira per month. When you actually average it out, it's very, very serious. So many poor people in Nigeria, honestly. And Sokoto has a moderate amount of population. So many people there too. The only state, according to the report now, with low enough number of people under the poverty line is Lagos State, with about 4.5% poor people, according to this benchmark again. So that's what it is, which means, and I guess that actually gives us, to make us understand that capitalism is very great. Lagos State is probably the most industrious state in the nation. Like, it's the most industrious state, so much business going around, so much economic activities going around, so much free market moving around. So they are creating so much wealth in that state. Like, there's no state in this country that is able to boast of the budget that Lagos State launches every single year. That's the first state that's able to launch up to 1 trillion naira per year as a budget. So that's just the situation. So it means if we want this country to move forward, we need to increase the free market in the country. We need to make sure that people go into business. We need to make sure that people go into entrepreneurship. We need to make sure that people start making things in this country. We have to move away from the level of extractive economy that is basing all our economy on oil and gas, and move to a stage where we are basing our economy on innovation and productivity. That is what is really going to move us forward. Like, Lagos is just like a test tube for us to see that happening in real time. We need to move ahead in this nation in order to alleviate poverty in the nation. Why is America very rich? It's because they practice the free market economy. That's why America is very rich. Even China, that is a little bit rich now, the reason why they are rich is because they decided to leave all those Marxist and communist ideas that they had from the communist revolution in the 1940s. At the end of the 1940s, they left it behind and they started to do what? To practice capitalism in a way, even though they still have authoritarian government, but they started practicing capitalism since the 1990s. That's why the economy suddenly boomed, and that's the reason. So you have to understand that we need to move this country up through capitalism. Government regulations have to be reduced so that businesses can flourish. And of course, this thing is also another part I'm going to be mentioning, is that even though we really, really want the nation to reopen so that all these people below the poverty line can still fend for themselves, because the government can't take care of them. We all understand that the social register is not beyond 1.6 million. We already said that it's about 2.6 million people on it. That is 2.6 million families on it. It's only 1.6 million families. Hopefully they have improved this right now, but that's the situation. So it means so many more people in Nigeria are actually out of that range. They cannot even be captured by the federal government. So there's not going to be any sort of palliatives for them. So we need them to go back to work, for them to be able to fend for themselves as much as possible and drop the crime rate. And then we have to understand, even despite all of that, we need to be as responsible as possible if we don't want to have another case of a severe lockdown. What is happening to Kano right now, we don't want it to happen. Even though there's easing of lockdown in other places, Kano cannot be eased right now because it has spread so much in Kano. We don't want that to happen in any other state. So we have to be responsible. We have to keep ourselves, distance from each other, social distancing and all of that, so that this thing can work, so that we can balance these two difficult questions, that is the livelihoods of people and, of course, protecting life. So that's what I just want us to understand. And of course, thank you very much for watching the video. I'll be seeing you guys in the next segment.